Yo. Yo, 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 yo. What's going on, everybody? You know who it is. It's Dev Dumalino back in the building, back in the studio once again. And I'm bringing you another bonus episode of the New Music Monday podcast. Bridge City Boys presents the New Music Monday podcast. Don't forget it. So yeah, I'm Dev Dumalino, Devon Marcel Whitaker, Chicken Nugget Man. Please say the Nugget Man. And we've been doing these bonus episodes that contain album reviews, aside from the albums that we usually talk about during the podcast. So like last week, it was Madlib, Sound Ancestors. Really enjoyed doing that review quite a bit. But there's a lot of albums that come out. We know this. Both in the hip-hop sector, just in music in general. There's a lot of shit coming out these days. And I've been trying to figure out how to get to 2 episodes a week for this podcast for quite a bit. So I think this is the way we're going to get closer to doing 2 episodes a week. Now, we did not have an episode this weekend. So I'm sorry that I left y'all hanging in that regard. But I felt like it would have taken it would have been a little too much time to wait until this next episode to really get into the Weeknd's Super Bowl performance, to get into a couple albums that we're gonna get into here. One you're listening to right now, The Wolf on Wall Street, The God Fahim, and Your Old Droog. The title of the album is called The Wolf on Wall Street, and those are the 2 artists who made the album. We're also gonna talk about Conway the Machine. We're doing an obligatory review on that pretty soon. We're also talking about Wolf on Wall Street as well, but we got a full review coming on Conway the Machine, so I'm going to give you my thoughts on that new Conway the Machine. We talked about recently, too, OK Human by Weezer, so we're going to stop there for just a moment before we do end up talking about the Weeknd's Super Bowl halftime performance show and what I thought about it. So without further ado, I don't want to hang too long on to the introductions, but I guess I should let y'all know, since we're going to talk about this Weeknd halftime show, that our new episode coming up, we're going to be talking about halftime shows. We're going to rank those halftime shows the last 10 years or so. So that's what we're going to be doing for season 5, episode 25, is including this Weeknd performance. I'm going to talk about how I feel about it now, and then this weekend we're going to get a chance to speak on where it maybe ranks amongst the modern ones, the most recent ones that they've been doing. So looking forward to that. Check out season 5, episode 25 when it comes out, but also check out season 5, episode 24. I think we're on 23. Sorry if I messed that up. But the first album I wanted to bring to y'all today, and we do have kind of a underground rap heavy kind of slate of things to talk about, but the first one I wanted to talk about is what we're listening to, The Wolf on Wall Street. Once again, this is a 2021 album. This did come out actually the same weekend as the whole AMC, GameStop, Redditors versus hedge fund managers debacle. And I don't know if they were just being opportunists on the moment, or if this was a project that had just been in the works and it was literally named The Wolf on Wall Street, and it was just, good timing with all of this stuff. But that's what we have here. And if it is a coincidence, I think that's really cool. Either way, it's enhanced by just the timing of it. But overall, it was an interesting idea to begin with, and I'm willing to bet it might have just been a cool coincidence, but I don't know. So somebody can let me know if they know more than I do. But if you've never heard of the God Fahim, I wouldn't be so surprised. If you never heard of Your Old Droog, I'd be just a touch more surprised, but also kind of not surprised. Especially depending on what kind of hip-hop you tend to be into. These guys are definitely lower key. There are some underground quote unquote artists that have just built a lot more of a prolific name for themselves than these two guys. But are there a lot of rappers out there right now better than these two guys? I don't know that off rip. I definitely can put these guys up against a good bit of the field, and they are nice. So both of these rappers I've talked about, though. If you've listened to the podcast, and especially if you have really followed the YouTube channel, you may remember that the God Fahim came up just on a random album review. He puts out a lot of music. He puts out a lot of projects. Puts out projects very often, but I took a particular liking to the Lost Kings project, I think is the name of it. Again, it's on my YouTube, and I talked about it, and I just brought up that the flows are really good. A couple great beats were picked. The songs are ones that you can run back, repeat, dive back into, keep in rotation. Just really enjoyable. Some food for thought for sure. But that's the kind of MC he is. And I really like both of these guys and respect both of these guys for pretty similar reasons. So again, they're first of all, Your Old Droog and the God Fahim both have these pretty one-of-a-kind voices. And they run tight with Makami as well, who also I think has a kind of a one-of-a-kind voice. But they both have a really distinct, interesting voice that kind of grabs the ear, I think. But they also, they're real true to the lyrical process, right? They have pretty high vocabularies. They have great flows. They have really disciplined flows too. I think they pick good beats, and they navigate those beats in interesting ways. And especially Your Old Droog, I really feel like when he gets to a song, he is just navigating it in a way that most other people wouldn't. The God Fahim kind of feels like he's speaking from the heart all the time. And Your Old Droog brings a really cerebral aspect to how he goes about rapping. And it all feels pretty calculated. Again, I like hearing these guys speak. They include a high volume of words in phrases. They get a lot of ideas and thoughts across with the words that they choose to use. And their vocabularies, again, are pretty wide, and I think it just keeps it all interesting on the level of lyricism and emceeing, rapping, whatever you want to call it. They have a really firm grasp on it, and they come from a school of the classic golden era. They are not like your Billy Woods. They're not guys that really abstract the form of rapping. I think they just really build on it and make it better, and they focus on the nuance of it, and they bring something new, or just something that most people can't really do on a talent level. I think both these guys are really, really, really solid lyricists. And so if you like listening into the lyrics of songs, I feel like you're rewarded for doing that on this album. I feel like you're rewarded for coming back a second time and sort of picking out new lines and things to emphasize about what they're saying on this project. I feel like you get rewarded for doing that. So if you are that kind of listener, I really recommend it. The project, that is. And while each beat doesn't bring you something entirely new, it does feel like Gupta, the second Makami feature, is the one real divergent beat amongst the 8 that are on here. But all the beats are really consistent, and in terms of the accents on them, they bring you something different enough each time to keep you in a zone. I mean, this thing is only 27 minutes long again, so not every beat is trying to necessarily outdo the last one. I just think each one brings in a nice sounding, different enough thing to allow them to come on and just build on what's already happening with this album. So these two guys particularly, again, I know they run really tight with Makami. You have two Makami features on here and him kind of interluding or monologuing really on the end of the intro, which I'll bring up in a sec. The three of them run pretty tight. Again, they're all pretty unique, and they all have great chemistry with one another. But I think that the God Fahim and Your Old Droog have an interesting synergy together. I think they have a really cool collaborative sound, and I think a lot of the beats that they chose with this project tend to really make them both sound very good. And so I think they just have a very natural fit on songs together. Definitely a peanut butter and jelly sort of thing going on there. And I don't think it's that hard to hear in these songs. Again, everything about this project feels really easy to enjoy on a pretty surface level, or more if you wanted to. I mean, they are speaking from interesting points of view. They do have a lot of things to say. They do count their words wisely, though they make a lot of them happen even in just less than a 30-minute project. But yeah, I think these guys are two talented MCs. I think they are guys that are going to continue to ascend in terms of who's really rapping the best these days and who's, making interesting underground projects. Your Old Droog just dropped an album, Dump Yard, Crew Toy Edition, or whatever it's called, that I thought was honestly kind of exceptional. Again, from a lyrical standpoint and from a filled out album slate of songs that he put together, it's pretty impressive. And his projects have been pretty good so far. And the God Fahim, same thing, has had some really solid projects to this point. But this album kind of entertains a cool combination of their strengths. And it also seems like there are some aspects of their writing or rapping or performing, conveying ideas or whatever that just feel like they've been pitched up to new highs on this project. So I'm really excited about what they're both coming with in the near future. They're never really too far away from dropping something, and they both have a really awesome independent infrastructure going for what they do. So I think whatever move they make is one made with conviction. It's one made with confidence. And so I'm just usually really, I'm coming to expect a lot from these guys. And I feel like, more and more people are going to continue to hear about, particularly the God Fahim, I think is on the come up in a strong way. So shout out to those two guys. There are some awesome songs in here. I don't really think there is a miss in this. Again, it's only 8 songs, so a miss would be kind of, considerable of a downside for this project. And I don't really think that there is one. I think this is pretty airtight. Again, from a rapping standpoint, neither of these guys took a song off. They never really took a moment off. And I think they really, showed their skills with this. And, again, a lot of really great singular tracks on here. I love both Makami features. I love the skits on here even. Like, the skits even were something that kind of impressed me. And just, like, the variety of skits or things that you heard put into the skits or interludes that are in this. Again, Makami had, in the intro, he kind of has this little interlude monologue at the end where he's talking about a recent conversation he had with, quote, someone from Buffalo. Him in West Side Gun just kind of patched up a little misunderstanding recently. And so if that's kind of what this is referring to, it's a nice little touch to the project and just the timeline of what's going on with these underground MCs that I believe are creating a pretty awesome renaissance, that I might add. And then later you hear like excerpts from Alan Watts, a philosopher. Kobe Bryant has a couple really, really cool sound bits in here as well. And overall, this is just a wire to wire, a really nice project for both of these guys. Are y'all seeing this? How did I do this? Now we're going to keep that underground vibe right where it is, and we're going to talk about Conway the Machine. Conway the Machine and Big Ghost, who is, to my knowledge, a blogger, DJ, personality type person, they are coming with the second installment of a series that they've been working on called If It Bleeds, It Can Be Killed. But sorry, this album is called If It Bleeds, It Can Be Killed. The first one is called No One Mourns the Wicked. So if you've been up on your Griselda, Conway news, you probably would have heard No One Mourns the Wicked. It was originally like this, like a Bandcamp release, and then it went to streaming for a hot moment, I feel like. And now it's no longer there. This, If It Bleeds, It Can Be Killed, is something you can only hear on Bandcamp or I bet probably SoundCloud. I'm playing it for y'all off of YouTube, so you can find it there as well, in full. And they've got a kind of a interesting situation going on with Shady Records. Westside Gunn and Conway the Machine are signed to Shady Records. And I think Griselda is signed to Shady Records, but I don't think Benny is. I think their whole situation is interesting. I want to know more, and I think we're going to see more. I'm interested to see how their potential departure from Shady Records is going to take place. And again, I think releasing something like this that doesn't go to streaming services isn't like a real album or even an EP or nothing. Kind of speaks to what's maybe going on over there, or just how they're going to motion through this whole process. But because this is such a non-official thing, I guess, and it's really a side project for him, Conway's getting to cut to, the core of what it is that he wants to be doing as a rapper and what he wants to do for some moments of his career, his projects and whatnot. So that's why this particular series has interested me, because it just feels a little bit more raw around the edges, a little bit more to the core of what a Conway fan might want. Because I think his album, while it was a pretty good project, it definitely spoke to a potential set of Conway the Machine fans that might be interested in him and just maybe haven't stumbled upon him or the whole Griselda thing quite yet, or just haven't gotten what it is to see the hype about. I know my dad has been like probably the biggest Griselda hater I know since I've showed him some of their material for years now, and this project and Benny's new project is some of the first stuff that he's told me that he kind of fucks with. So there it is right there, This is not that same thing. I think there is a lot of really easy to like or really easy to appreciate aspects about what he's doing with this project, being If It Bleeds, It Could Be Killed. But it really does go back to that Griselda core, that Conway core, that if you're someone like me, you're hoping to hear while they continue to evolve and grow and change up and do different things. So, of course, we really like and respect that. I've liked all the projects that Conway has done recently. The album was great. The deluxe was awesome. And in between that, doing this and the No One Mourns the Wicked project, boom, 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 all of it. Really great. But I think this one is the one. I think this is better than each of those. And really, I think this is, I thought the album and the No One Mourns the Wicked were two of his best projects he's dropped yet. I think this is better than both of them. And I think this is the clear winner in terms of this big Ghost series that he's been working on. That so far, this is the hottest shit that he's dropped. And in recent memory, this is the hottest shit that he has dropped to me. Now, why is that? Because I feel like, you know, he's not switching up too hard. He's not trying to blow your mind and step out of pocket and do something new and whatnot. Like I said, again, he's kind of bringing it back to the core of what he's always done. But the thing is that Conway has been kind of raw-er than Westside and Benny even, in terms of releasing full projects that have stacked track lists, that have, you know, really consistent, relentless songs throughout, like hits, one after another. For me, I haven't always seen that in every single Conway project, but it's getting to be more of a common thing now. Like, I didn't really hate nothing off of the album From King to a God. No One Mourns the Wicked had like a couple missteps, but for the most part, it's like, yes, this is what I want to hear. Song after song after song. Something new, something interesting, but something consistent. This album, I really feel like, has zero misses. And I feel like in terms of moments, not just songs, like moments, it's a pretty relentless effort too. The rapping on here, not to say that Conway hasn't always been elite, always been like killing shit, but I think he's just even more focused on these songs. I think he's even more ferocious on some of what you're hearing here. And I really think, again, more focused, more sharp than he's ever been. On top of already being, again, a respected, a sharp, a really, elite type MC in terms of what the landscape looks like right now. Yeah, Conway is one of those dudes and has been for a minute. But it is songs like, Jay Batters. So not the intro, but that second song that we just heard before this. And moving up, say like a song like Losses to Blessings. And then in the back end, like Forever Ago, I think that's the track I want to bring up. He has some really unfiltered, close to home, personal lyrics that I think are adding to the overall intake of the words and the sentiments of this project. Like, yeah, some songs he is just rapping, but even in those moments, he's really, really sharp again. He sounds great. He's making really good songs. He's not like, trying to bar you to death, like in spite of making a good song that's worth coming back to and repeating and listening more than once. He doesn't do any of that kind of shit that you do see from like, Eminem, artists like that can rap really well. I think this has a different beat each time. I think this has a song that each song brings me something new, brings me something considerably different each time, and I respect that about it. So like, and the beats are great too. Each beat is different and each beat is fantastic. So like that whole side of this project is rock solid to me. And then again, the other most important part of this, Conway rapping, Conway being elite, eating beats, that is handled with some consistency here as well. So that side of things is rock solid. And if you are a Conway listener, you're a Conway fan, I don't really know what more you begin to ask for from a guy like him doing what he's doing on a project like this. For me, it's like, can I get this on streaming? That's what I want out of this. Can I listen to this more often? Like, that's what I want out of this. But overall, I think it's an excellent look into where Conway is really at right now. I think his streams of thought are fantastic. I think that he just really didn't slack with what's going on here. And in a 10-song project that, if I recall correctly, is just under 30 minutes. 29 minutes and 53 seconds. So again, another short project. with just a couple more songs than that God Fahim project. But still, you have the same quality where I feel like every ounce that you get out of this thing carries a lot in terms of great music, great songwriting, excellent rapping. It's just all there in terms of if you're really looking for some underground shit, if you're really looking for music that beckons to a time that just isn't really there right now. What am I saying? Like, you know, there's just something of the Scarfaces, of the MC8s, of the, gangster rappers of another time that exists in this Griselda shit. And Conway is just he really lives up to that name of being a machine. I mean, rhymes are coming out of his head in a way that just feel computerized. And it's crazy to think that he does all that with, like, having to learn how his mouth works differently, right? We've all seen how it looks like. The fact that that is a part of what he does, raising the level of difficulty, I think, in a lot of what he is doing on these songs. I just take all that into consideration and I say, damn, this is something. This is definitely more than the average project to me. I think he hit a particular zone in what we're experiencing here, and I just think it really excites me because I have been kind of interested, curious, not necessarily worried about where Griselda's going, just not sure because they have really risen to a level that I wasn't really sure they would. And so now what for them? All of them are reaching kind of interesting crossroads for the future, being Westside and Conway and Benny particularly. And I think Conway doing what he's doing, just running right through the wall and releasing projects and putting out as much music as he can, but really focusing on that music, really making it the best that he can make it, gets me excited for, where he's going to be seen in the grand scheme of hip-hop to move forward, like in an all-time space. So I think you are listening to one of the great rappers of all time. I know we just did a top 50 list, and he's not quite like there to make it my top 50 yet. Still a little too, like, I know Westside made it, but I still want to see a little more from Conway. But he's one of the 100 greatest rappers I've ever heard, for sure. And I think that a top 50 or higher is absolutely capable for him to achieve. And this is the kind of project that really gets me thinking about that. So to say that, I mean, like, this is up there for me. I think of the bunch of albums that we're going to talk about, this would be my favorite. Of the albums I've reviewed in this bonus episode series so far, I would say this is second only to the Navy Blue in terms of, how much I liked the albums I've been talking about thus far. Yeah, I recommend it. I think maybe if you're not really a Conway fan, that this won't musically, like, make you one. I don't know. I think everything there is to like about it is kind of easy to see, but at the same time, if you're not really into this sector of hip-hop, I wouldn't really imagine this, like, makes that switch for you. But if you are a Griselda fan, if you are a Conway fan, and you're just not like a hardcore one, and maybe you haven't heard this yet, hear it. It's fantastic. It really, really is that good. And if you are a big Conway fan, or you are just a big fan of this kind of music, I expect that you feel somewhat similarly to me. I mean, I don't really know what else to ask for in terms of Griselda music than what I'm hearing here. So yeah, just really, really solid. Again, going back to his roots, where I felt like he was a little bit more raw and didn't make as good projects, and uses his level of consistency that he has now to bring that back to the sound that he was kind of always working with. and you know, updating it. And I think he's made one of his most elite, one of his best projects yet. And I think people are going to sleep on it. So I won't. You guys won't. Okay. Now, we are not just talking hip hop today. With this series, I haven't just wanted to talk only hip hop. So we're going to keep that streak alive here. And we're going to talk about an album that I missed to review for obligatory. I was kind of upset about it because I was interested in Weezer's new OK Human. And I heard it was a little different than what they've been doing in the past, though they've been around. That's the thing about Weezer, too. Like, and I'm not going to get super, super in depth with them because I'm not going to act like I listen to any of their recent projects, really. And therefore, I'm like a huge authority on this one. But what it seems to be is that this is the project that diverges from the recent onslaught of pretty consistent records that they've been putting out, the Black Album, the Teal Album, and some other, albums with different themes outside of the Weezer series. But what it sounds like to me is that, Weezer here is becoming... What are they doing? They've kept all the instruments here, but they've stripped them back in like the garage bandy kind of way that they used to be. And they've added some new things in, and it just feels like they're going for a touch more pop-oriented, Rivers Cuomo focused or centric experience, because he really cuts through as like the main instrument of what's going on, and there's all this, like what we're hearing right now, new kind of accessory sounding instrumentation in the back that, from what I know about Weezer, which is not much, they just haven't really made anything that sounds much like this. It's been a lot more true to their rock sound that they've been known for years. So I just wanted to bring this up as something that I thought was honestly really cool, catchy, like something that pleasantly surprised me throughout. I knew it was going to kind of be that way. Like, I knew it was going to be kind of a revamp for them. And even then, I didn't think I was going to be as enamored with some of the songs as I ended up being in like my first listen. Again, I don't want to bring this album up or draw it out for too long. I've really only given it that one solid listen, so I'm hoping to go back and do more. But what I heard really had me wanting to come back for that second listen, so I definitely plan to soon, to sink my teeth into it a little bit more. I think some songs might be a little rich or a little like, they might get stuck in my head in a way I won't like. I'm thinking of like all my favorite songs at the very beginning. Don't know that I'm going to be a huge fan of that. Moving like, after 2, 3, 4 listens, it was really cool on that first song, and I don't know that it'll hold up. But there are songs on here that I think are going to be really good for multiple listens. And I like the quirky, again, self-reflective songwriting on here. Rivers Cuomo sounds pretty cool. I like that there's an increased focus on his performance. Grapes of Wrath is a great example of everything I just said. Quirky lyricism, the self-reflective lyrics, and Rivers Cuomo kind of, really breaking out of another shell to become another level of performer for this record. And yeah, another thing that you might have just slept on if you heard Weezer's putting out yet another album and you were like, man, I didn't really care for those Teal album covers. I didn't really like the No Scrubs cover, I didn't really like that. I think you should check this out. I definitely recommend giving it one good go through. Again, all the albums that we're talking about, like 30-minute albums. So each one of these you could be done with in 90 minutes. And again, this is another project that's like low risk. It's really fun from the start. Again, really quick and to the point. But definitely something new. So I appreciated that. And the last thing that I wanted to bring up with you guys, because this weekend, me and Trent are going to get in the lab and we're going to do an episode about Super Bowl halftime shows and which ones are great, which ones are bad, and kind of rank them at least from 2010 till now. Now, there have been some awesome ones. There have been some super iconic ones prior to that, MJ, Prince, and others. But I didn't want to go through that whole like decade of albums as well. So we're just going to keep it to the ones that are semi-recent. Excuse me. Follow a similar kind of formula, because for the last 10 years or 11 years I think now, it's been there's been a director for these, so they've kind of been conducted all by like the same guy. And I wanted to bring up Abel's halftime show because it was it was a little controversial. And I feel like every year, like, people are kind of back and forth between whether the halftime show they just saw was like really good or if it was complete shit. But yeah, I saw that definitely come up for this. Like, people thought it was a bad Super Bowl performance. Thought it was honestly low-key kind of trash, kind of doo-doo, which I didn't think was very fair. Okay, spoiler alert, I disagree with that. My take on this is going to be mostly positive, at least for The Weeknd and what he brought to the performance. But here's my disposition on The Weeknd in general. I'm not surprised some of y'all thought it was trash, because in general, I think Weeknd fans like his bad music and ignore his good music and then like shit on his best music. I'm not really a big fan of Trilogy Weeknd. I was like a pretty anti-Weeknd like up until this year, up until After Hours. Like, I've definitely liked some songs, some moments, and his voice at times, or just his style at times, but especially during that Trilogy era, and still today I feel this way, that guy had no idea what he was doing in terms of like vocally, lyrically, style, like schematically. I didn't really think that guy was that guy. That version of The Weeknd was that interesting, and I did not think he was a great musician. And my feelings have definitely changed on him in general, but mostly through After Hours and because of After Hours. So I was excited. Now that I love The Weeknd, I was fucking excited that he was going to be the halftime show, which I kind of suspected he might be just because of the trajectory that he was on and how they usually try to get somebody that's, can appeal to as many people as possible. I think Weeknd is that guy right now. I think he's a huge artist, and it was the right call. And even better timing, he's having a great year with the ascendance of After Hours and with Blinding Lights playing everywhere you fucking go, and I think he's just on a good run. So yeah, I think Weeknd fans in general have terrible taste. I think they praise his bad music. I think they I think they just shit on his good music. So I was not surprised that I felt differently about this performance than some other people that I know like The Weeknd. But I think The Weeknd has a really solid catalog too, like already in his 10 or so years of really being on a certain level. He has a pretty solid catalog. And from his point of view, I actually wouldn't change a lot about how this was. And I didn't think this was a perfect Super Bowl performance. I didn't think this was an exceptional Super Bowl performance, or show rather, like production overall. I didn't think it was, the best. I didn't think it was mind-blowing in any way. And in some ways, I feel like I maybe had just a touch higher hopes for what it was, and maybe it was just a little underwhelming. But I was expecting a lot. I was expecting a guy who wanted to really envision the project and who really wanted to kind of prove himself and his musical ability on this stage. And I think he did that. But again, I just think overall this wasn't, the most mind-blowing performance. But I guess we can start with the set list because it ended up being like 6 or so songs. And at first I thought this was the real problem I had with it, and then I realized there's only about there's one thing I would change. It's kind of a specific thing I would change about how the songs went along. I'm not a big fan of Starboy at all. I really don't like that album, and I don't like that song especially. Probably one of my least favorite big Weeknd songs. But I also understand before Blinding Lights, that was his biggest song to date. And so I see why it kind of had to make the set list. But I thought it was actually a weak song to start with at the beginning. I would have liked to hear him go directly into, start with The Hills. And then somewhere along the set list, in the middle or in the early middle even, to put not Save Your Tears, because he played that. In Your Eyes. If he would, because that's part of a stretch of the album I really like. In Your Eyes, Save Your Tears, and Blinding Lights. I thought was kind of the best moment of After Hours. And I, personally would have liked to see just a little bit more emphasis on the album that inspired the entire set design of this halftime show. Because, again, we only get 2 After Hours songs, and I thought the rest of the set list, it's good. I sang every song. I knew the lyrics to all these songs and enjoyed it for the most part. But I kind of would have liked to see a little bit more emphasis on this album. One more song from this album being pushed. 1, because I think it's a great album. 2, because I think it's his best album. And 3, because what I just said, everything about this whole performance and the costumes and the set design and everything is in the style of After Hours. In each of the Weeknd projects, so even when I didn't like him, I thought this was cool about what he did. Each of the projects that he does takes on a very different stylistic or at least aesthetic approach, right? And every album looks pretty different. And so when he's singing all these songs from the past, but everything is how After Hours is, I felt a little pulled out of the spirit or just the throes of those individual songs. Now again, I thought some songs still hit, regardless. The Hills, I loved hearing that. I don't know, some of these songs landed kind of no matter what. Some of the songs I felt like I didn't get all the way into them because he's just really removed from that period of time. And so, I don't know. It was one small thing, and it was not catastrophic in any way. And I don't even know that The Weeknd has that say 100%, because I feel like he would have, I don't know, but something tells me that he doesn't get to just choose every single song and how everything goes together. But maybe he does. I don't know. Again, it wasn't a terrible part of what I watched. To be honest, the biggest letdown for me in terms of this whole thing as a production, as a show, was kind of the set design, was kind of the components of the set design. Overall, I thought it was cool. I imagine that this year of the Super Bowl, was a little different in terms of what you could do, what you couldn't do, what things you could afford, what things you may not have had a budget for, right? We heard that The Weeknd he decided to put some of his own money. The reported figure was $7 million or something like that into the show itself. And a common comment that I saw people, saying was that this was what he put all that money towards. And so to me, I kind of think like, what would it have looked like if he didn't put that money in, or like, what did he add? Like, what or would we be missing if he just went up there and did whatever y'all had planned, or whatever was just in the budget or whatnot. So what kind of constraints were there on this performance? Now, another thing that I thought, this is just me speculating, but we played 2 of the Starboy songs, I Feel It Coming and Starboy, both produced by Daft Punk. Both have Daft Punk in them. And so I kind of figured that it was a little weird that this year had no special guest, when most years of the Super Bowl halftime show have some additional guest come on, usually more than one. And so I kind of thought that if this was a normal year, we probably would have seen Daft Punk come out and perform some of these songs with him. Or, another thing that you see sometimes that actually didn't show up in this performance was any sort of medley, any sort of combination of like his own songs, or a medley of his song, or a remix of one of his songs and say a Daft Punk song, like Stronger, Harder, Faster, or whatever, or or of a different artist or something like. There's nothing like that. I feel like the bells and whistles that went into this thing, they just feel a little bit less than most years. And I kind of just am assuming that's because of COVID, the pandemic, and the financial situation that maybe, the NFL is in. And I thought Abel went in there and kind of did what he could do. I thought the performance itself, in terms of one guy on that stage entertaining 20,000 people in a giant room, was not bad. I thought everything about how like stuff looked was pretty cool. Again, it just came down to the set design. I thought had some awkward moments in it, like the mirror room. I thought was cool. The mirror room and the hand camera I thought was cool at first, but I thought with all the backup dancers and kind of the prolonged use of the mirror room kind of took some of the novelty out of it. Ended up looking a little bit awkward while they were in there. Again, like nitpicky stuff that I personally didn't like or would have just liked to see done a little bit differently. But in terms of the Weeknd and how he got up there and did his thing, I thought he sang well. Mind you, he went up there and sang, right? Not everybody does that at the halftime show. And not everybody goes up there and sings well. That's the other thing, too. Some people can sing well, and then they go in there and they sound like shit. And that wasn't the Weeknd. He sounded really solid. I thought he hit some solid notes. He, again, didn't blow my mind. And there were a couple moments where, like, that thing about his voice where it just sounds a little thin, a little, like it just is not quite as robust as it sounds in a studio quality recording. I thought, a couple of those moments started to pop up, but for the most part, he really held it down. I thought he really delivered a solid performance. And I just think if it was a normal year, that it would have looked a little bit more like how Super Bowl halftime shows look, and it probably would have been one of the most memorable ones, because I think that, the Weeknd has a really cool vision. I think he has a really good eye for that aspect of performance. And so I thought he was a grand slam for a halftime Super Bowl show. I just thought this year being kind of a weird year, more likely than not, made it something a little less than it could have or should have been. But again, the timing, it just kind of made too much sense. I mean, Abel is really, really going up because of the Super Bowl halftime show that you just did. And again, it wasn't even really all that crazy, but I thought it was solid. And I don't really get why anyone thought it was trash, thought it was just bad. I mean, we've seen some bad halftime shows. We're about to talk about some bad halftime shows on the episode that we're about to do here in a few days. And this was definitely not that. Not even close. So shout out the Weeknd. Shout out Weezer. Shout out Conway the Machine. Shout out the God Fahim and your old Droog. And shout out Makami as well. This has been another bonus episode of the New Music Monday podcast. A little longer than the ones we've done before, but I've been away and we didn't do a podcast this week, so why the hell not? And look forward to this upcoming episode that we have. Again, we're going to talk about some more Super Bowl halftime shows, and I'm excited about that. I'm going to have a lot of fun doing that. I think Trent will as well. So thank you guys if you're listening to another full episode, bonus episode, album review episode of our podcast. Shout out to you guys as well. And we will be back pretty damn soon, okay? So hold tight. We got more music content coming for you guys on Spotify, on Apple, YouTube, etc. Shout out to my guys at Obligatory if you're not already following Obligatory. Shout out the gang if you like voicing your own opinion about music in writing or even just sending scores and things like that. Contributing to a community score for an album. Then follow at Obligatory on Instagram and fuck with us over there. So I am Dev Demolino. This has been another bonus episode of the New Music Monday podcast. Bridge City Boys presents the New Music Monday podcast. Chicken Nugget Man signing off. Holla at your boy, all right? Peace.